How's it going, everyone? How are you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Today I am going over week 12 of the Premier League, but before I get into it, I want you guys to go down to the comments real quick. Let me know your predictions for every game that is happening this week. While you're down there, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We hit 20 subscribers. Yay! But yeah, let me know your guys' predictions. Hit that like, subscribe button. Let's get right into it with Leeds versus West Ham. Now, obviously, both these teams had some rough losses. Leeds 3-1 against Chelsea. West Ham 3-1 against United. So they're coming off the back with not great losses, not great games for either team. I'd say that maybe it's a bit of a tough one to call because they're both teams that can do a lot in a game. They can really do a lot. And ultimately, I think this does come down to if West Ham can keep Leeds at bay. And just, because if you can't control Leeds, because Leeds are most likely going to press West Ham. They're going to come up with a good press and really challenge West Ham. And from open field, they have been a very good team. Maybe not so much against Chelsea last week, but they did get a goal from open field last week, to be fair. So, it's going to be really tough, I think, for West Ham to control Leeds. But if West Ham can control Leeds, then I think they can come up with a good result in this game. Now, Leeds are actually the favorites. They are over 125, whereas West Ham are over 215. The odds for the draw is over 270. So, clearly, I think that one of these teams is going to come away with a win. And I personally think so, too. I don't think this is going to end up a draw. I think it's going to be a tight game, though. I feel like West Ham maybe won't be able to fully control Leeds. So I'm going to go with a 2-1. Maybe, you know what? Nah. 2-1. No, you know what? I'm going to go with a wild scoreline. I'm going to go with a 3-2. I'm going to go with a 3-2 to Leeds. I think it's going to be one of those wild games for Leeds where they just keep scoring and they keep conceding. But ultimately, they're able to walk away with all 3 points. Now, the Wolves-Aston Villa game is a bit of a toughie to call. It's always tough with teams who get, a break, although Aston Villa's game got postponed. Whether they're going to come into the game cold or whether they're going to come into the game well-rested. There's a difference between those two. Right now, as it stands, Wolves are the favorites at over 132. Aston Villa, the odds for Aston Villa winning and the odds for them drawing is over 230. So Wolves favorites in this one, not by a whole lot though, but I don't know. It's tough because Wolves obviously are coming off the back of a really tough loss to Liverpool, 4-0. They really couldn't find too many chances in that game. They just didn't really have too many opportunities to get themselves back into that game. Whereas, like I said, Aston Villa have had an extra week off, and whether it's going to help or hurt them, we really don't know. Sometimes it hurts these teams to get that extra week. Sometimes it helps, especially with prep time. They're not the ones that had to, go into quarantine or anything like Newcastle in this game, the next game I'm going to talk about. So, with that being said, I think that Aston Villa need this win, and I think they can come up with this win. I think they can upset, according to the odds, Wolves. And, Wolves haven't exactly been in tip-top form. And they did come up with a big win against Arsenal, but everyone's been coming up with big wins against Arsenal, let's be honest. So I think that Aston Villa will pull this off. I'm going to go with a tighter scoreline, or I don't think Wolves get shut out 2 weeks in a row, but I think Aston Villa is going to come away with a 2-1 win and take down Wolves. Now, like I mentioned earlier with Newcastle, they've been a bit of the same boat as Aston Villa. However, they were the ones, I don't remember if they had to quarantine or if it was just because there was an outbreak amongst the staff. I don't think the players were really affected, but regardless, I think they would have had to shut down training and all that. So if they had to do that, then this is going to be a bit of a tougher game for West Brom, a game where West Brom could potentially take advantage of a cold Newcastle. I think Newcastle, honestly, between Newcastle and Aston Villa, I think Newcastle would have wanted to play that game more last week because, they had back-to-back really tough losses against Southampton and Chelsea where they were just flat awful. They weren't very good against them. And then they had their big win against Crystal Palace. They returned the form, and it would have been really nice for them to be able to go against Aston Villa and try to carry on that form. But unfortunately, the game got postponed. Now, in this game, Newcastle are the favorites at over 130. West Brom over 240. Not heavy favorites, surprisingly, despite the fact that West Brom are towards the bottom of the table. I believe they're in relegation zone, 19th place. It's a game where West Brom could maybe come up with a win, but I don't think so. I really don't think West Brom stand much of a chance. This is kind of one of the easier games to call this week. There's only a couple, in my opinion, that are pretty easy to call this week, but I think that Newcastle will come away with this one. I'm going to go with a 2-0. I think they get another nice 2-0 win like they did against Crystal Palace and continue their upward trend, returning to form after those 2 really bad games that they had. Now, the big one, the big headliner match of the week, the Manchester Derby. Manchester United versus Manchester City. Odds are in City's favor. They are under 129, over 335 for Man United, over 320 for the draw. So obviously Man City, clear favorites according to the odds. And I'm kind of going to agree to a certain extent. Obviously United not having the greatest week. They lost to Leipzig. Were really controlled by Leipzig until about the last 15 minutes or so, where they almost mounted a good comeback, but they couldn't finish it, and unfortunately were dropped to the Europa League. Now, obviously, that raised a lot of questions around Ola, around the ownership, around all the staff, stuff like that. So United might not be in the greatest place right now mentally. They're in a bit of a state of disarray. I'm not saying it's crazy, it's all end of the world for them, but they're in a little bit of a shakeup right now. They're probably still a little shaken, rather, I guess, from the loss against Leipzig and having to go down to the Europa League. Whereas City, in recent times, for a while there, the Champions League form was a lot better than their Premier League form, but in recent times, they've started to turn it around in the Premier League. There's a reason why, but to be fair, United and City have both climbed the table, but I feel like City in recent times have had more impressive wins. United have had to come from behind in a couple recent games in order to come away with all 3 points. To be fair, they did. They showed a lot of heart to come from behind, but the fact that they go down in the first place is not a good sign. That's why I think City should come away with a win in this one, in my opinion. That's why I said, to a certain extent, I agree with the odds. I don't think they're really heavy favorites. The scoreline I'm about to throw at you, you might think I think they're heavy favorites, but I'm gonna go with 3-1 to City. I have a feeling it's going to be like 2-1 heading into the last, it's like 80th minute, and then City just get a third one to just that dagger, to stop United from potentially making a comeback. Maybe City go into the half 2-0. United pull one back, but they're not really, they're pressing high. They're trying to get that second to equalize, but then City get like a good counter and get the third to seal off the game 3-1. Whether City really blow out United, like controlling possession and doing all that. Maybe control possession, but really control the game. I don't know, because United are a really tough side to call. Their form can be very up and down. Their form, they can go from beating big teams to losing to teams that are gonna go on to get relegated. So their form is strange. When they want to play, they can really play. They're amongst the best in the world, period. But when they're off, they're off. They're not great. So I think City can take advantage of a United that's not in a great spot, maybe mentally right now, and can come away with a nice 3-1 win. I feel like Pep might come up with something creative to try and take down United. Now, like I said, big headliner game. But moving on to Chelsea versus Everton. Everton obviously not in great form right now. Not in great form by any stretch of the imagination. They're losing a lot. They're drawing a lot. In their last game, they drew against Burnley. They lost against Leeds. They barely beat Fulham. Lost against United. They lost against Newcastle. They've lost against Southampton. The last 5 games in the Premier League have not, last 6. Well, the win over Fulham, but that was still a close game, to be fair. In terms of the scoreline, they have not been in great form by any stretch of the imagination. They're struggling right now after their the hot start to the season. They were they're towards the top of the table for a second there, or they were top for a second there, but they've really lost it. So I think Chelsea can take advantage. I don't think they can really trump Everton, like crazy. But ultimately, I do think at the very least, Chelsea hold a clean sheet against Everton. I feel like we could at least manage that. The odds for this game are in Chelsea's favor, as I would have thought. Under 125 for a Chelsea win, over 310 for a draw, over 340 for an Everton win. So obviously Chelsea, as you would expect, are the favorites in this game. But the question is, how many goals are Chelsea really going to score? Who's going to start is another question. Are we, is this a game where we have one eye on the Wolves game that's going to be a quick turnaround? Or do we focus on this one and focus on the Wolves? Do we try to go hard on both? Obviously, we want to keep winning. We want to keep pace with Liverpool and Spurs because more than likely both of them are going to come away with wins. We'll get to them in a second. I'm going to have some confidence in my team. I'm going to go with the 3-0 scoreline. But I wouldn't be surprised if Everton can really give us a challenge. Everton can. They can give us a challenge. It's just if they actually, show up. They really haven't. The last Big Six team they played was who? United, when they lost 3-1. Where is it? They lost 3-1 to United right here. So, I mean, they had Liverpool, drew with them. They did beat Spurs, but that was way early in the season. Things have changed a lot since then. So I think Chelsea come up with a big win against Everton, but I wouldn't be surprised if they actually give us a tough challenge. Now, moving to Southampton versus Sheffield. Southampton, the favorites in this one. I feel like this is honestly one of the easiest games to call this week, if not the easiest game to call this week. Southampton under 137 for the win, over 285 for the draw, over 400 for the Sheffield win. So obviously Southampton the favorites in this one. There's really not much to say. Yeah, I agree. I think Southampton come out with a win. I've lost faith in Sheffield. They had their opportunity to get their first win against West Brom and they blew it. And I don't know. I don't know anymore. I had faith at the beginning of the season. I think I put them like 7th or something like that. But I've lost faith. I genuinely think they're destined for relegation this season. Last week, I just flashed it for a second. Their 2-1 loss to Leicester. The scoreline was a bit closer than the game actually was. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's a bigger win for Southampton, pretty much is what I'm saying. I've lost faith in Southampton and their ability to try and come up with some big results. I don't think they can do it this week. If they couldn't do it against West Brom, I don't know who they can do it against, honestly. So I think that should be an easy win for Southampton. If Sheffield win, kudos. But I think Southampton come away with a win in that one. Moving on to Crystal Palace versus Spurs. I think this is going to be a fairly interesting game. Obviously Spurs are going to be incredibly defensive as they have been. It's really annoying. But Crystal Palace, I think, they're a team capable of being a giant killer, but are they capable of beating Tottenham's front? Well, not front, their block, rather. Can they beat that? And my answer is no, I really don't think so. I think they give Spurs a challenge. I think maybe they surprise Spurs early with like an early goal, but Spurs counter will be too strong. I feel like Kane and Son, obviously they've been the duo for Spurs this season. I think that's a huge reason why Spurs are super successful with their block is the fact that Kane and Son are just in incredible form. So when they counter, they're able to finish those counters. I think if teams really want to watch, and I know I'm not tooting around horn or anything, but I think if teams want to watch it, how to stop them, I think the Chelsea game would be a good start. I don't think we did incredibly well against Kane and Son, but we did enough to try and disrupt that partnership and keep them at bay and force other players to step up because they do have other quality players. It's just Kane and Son have been at the forefront of their scoring, and Chelsea did a good job of disrupting them. It's just we couldn't break their block, so that's a whole other thing on and of itself. It's one thing to stop their front, it's another thing to break their block. So it's going to be really tough for Crystal Palace. I think, like I said, I think they stun Spurs early. They come up with like a big early goal, but then lose it and are unable to really keep it going for the rest of the game. And Spurs get a couple counterattacking goals before the half, maybe get another one and just control the second half, and that's that. Moving on to, real quick, odds. As you'd expect, Spurs favorites, under 132 for Spurs win, over 300 for a draw, over 380 for a Crystal Palace win. So obviously Spurs favorites in that one. Moving on to Fulham Liverpool. As we've come to expect with Fulham, the odds are heavily against them. Fulham imagine over 800. That makes more sense for a Fulham win, over 490 for a draw, under 303 for the Liverpool win. So like I said, the odds recent weeks have not been in Fulham's favor at all, not even close. So I think that Fulham, I feel like this is going to be one of the more comfortable games of the week for a team, much like the Southampton-Sheffield game. I think maybe even Newcastle, West Brom if they actually show up. Maybe Chelsea, Everton if Everton don't show up. Maybe Spurs, because honestly there's a lot of easy games that could happen this week. But I think this is probably going to be one of the more easier ones. Only behind, I'd say, Southampton, Sheffield. But I think Liverpool could come up with another big 4-0 win for the biggest win of the week. maybe Fulham actually give them a challenge and control the game, because not control the game, but at least really stay in the game rather. But with the way Liverpool played against Wolves, I don't see that happening. Obviously, they had their game in the Champions League this week, but it was kind of a rotated side, as like a half rotated almost. The fact that they were still able to come up with a pretty decent game. I mean, they played decently well in that game. Wasn't great, but regardless, I don't know. I just think Liverpool take this one. I don't think Liverpool or Leicester. I really don't think that Fulham will manage to beat them. Maybe surprise them with how well they might come out the break. But I think Liverpool come out with this one. Now, Arsenal, Burnley. Now, both these teams, I would say they both have really different reasons as to why they really want to win this game or really want to take this opportunity. Now, the odds real quick. Arsenal under 180 for the win, over 320 for the draw, over 550 for a Burnley win. Now, for Arsenal, they've not been in great scoring form. Let's be honest. They haven't really been, aside from Europa League and the Premier League, they have not been in great scoring form. So this is a game that they can maybe try and come up with a big scoreline against Burnley. Whether they can or not, it's tough. But this is an opportunity for Burnley to maybe try and take advantage of the fact that Arsenal haven't really been in great scoring form and come up with some kind of result, some kind of points in this game, whether it's a draw, a win. I doubt Burnley win. I think the best that they can shoot for is a draw. If they come up with a win, amazing, great. But I think this is an opportunity for Arsenal to try and run up the score against Burnley, try and get some confidence going up front. But I really don't think that I think they win. Don't get me wrong. I think that Arsenal do win this game, but I don't think they win by a scoreline that they would want. I'm gonna go with a 2-1. I think maybe Burnley make it a little uncomfortable for them, and they really aren't able to run up the scoreline. So some confidence, but not too much confidence from this game. I wouldn't be surprised if Arsenal come out with a 3-0 win, a 4-0 win, 5-0 win, 5-1, 4-1, whatever. But I think maybe Arsenal struggle a bit against Burnley, who in recent times, to be fair, haven't been awful. We don't count the City games because that's a guaranteed 5-0 loss for Burnley. But they drew against Everton. Like I said, they had their loss against Man City. We don't count that. They beat Crystal Palace. So, I mean, they drew with Brighton. They're not in horrible form. But I don't think it's enough to win against Arsenal. I think it's enough to challenge Arsenal at least, though. Now, the final game of the week, obviously, after 2 busy days back-to-back, the final game of week 12, Leicester versus Brighton. Leicester over 107 to win, over 280 for the draw, over 290 for the Brighton win. I don't know if you've noticed a certain trend. I tend to back Brighton a lot. But I don't know if I can back them in this one. Leicester are coming off of in terms of the scoreline, a close game against Sheffield. Obviously, Brighton also a close game against Southampton. Some VAR controversy there. Leicester, week previous, a loss to Fulham. Brighton drew with Liverpool. Some VAR controversy there. When isn't there? Brighton obviously had the big win against Aston Villa a couple weeks ago before that. And Leicester lost 3-0 to Liverpool. So, some drastically different form for both teams, kind of up and down. Both teams lost in the last week. Leicester won. Brighton lost. 2-1 scoreline in both those games. It's a tough one, honestly. You know what? I'm going to back Brighton. I know. I'm going to back Brighton every game where they really... Oh, no. I'm going to back Brighton every game where they realistically have a chance. I think no draws this week. I didn't even go with a single draw. I think a lot of these teams can and will win. One side's going to win. I don't really see many draws. Maybe the Manchester Derby. Maybe the Leeds West Ham. Maybe Aston Villa Wolves. But I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of wins this week. I don't know if we see many draws. And then watch, it's going to be like 5 draws. But I think teams will win these games. I don't think there's going to be a draw. I'm going to back Brighton, though. I'm going to back Brighton. I feel like they need one of these big wins. They need a big win against a bigger side, a side that's towards the top of the table. I feel like they need it. If they get a win like that, that's a huge confidence booster for them. And it's just been a long time coming for them to get a win like that, Like when they faced United, they obviously had the draw against Liverpool where they played really well. They had the loss against Chelsea in week 1 where they played really well and just were really unfortunate with that scoreline. So I think that Brighton, I think they're overdue for a big upset over a team that's in the top half of the table, or at least in the top 5 of the table, and I think they can do it. I genuinely think that they can do it, and they can beat Leicester. Now, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I want you guys to go down in the comments, let me know your predictions for this week. You probably wholeheartedly disagree with me, and that's okay. That's why we have opinions. And like I said, while you're down there, please go hit that subscribe button and that like button if you guys enjoyed the video. Also, check out the socials in the description. My Twitter is @BlueHermit1. My Instagram is @BlueHermit_. Please share the socials with your friends, family, everybody know. Let the people know Blue Hermit's where it's at, and I'll see you guys later.